I'm going to start by showing you guys one of my favorite ways to use a razor. Okay, you guys ready? So this is like a stealth way of using a razor. So if you think about it, one of the downsides of a razor is it's very loud and it's very obvious when it's coming, right? So watch how they set up a razor here to kind of give him an element of surprise.
You gonna bust out the showstopper early with Keyless?
Yeah, he might try to just restart the push. There goes the.
So he closed the gap silently through the razor, and it gives him a huge element of surprise. So this is a really cool way to use a razor. He does die. I think it was a good 1-for-1, to be honest, but he could have, you know, it could have been a bit better. Maybe if the Sky went with him and flashed through, it would have been nice.
So what exactly did they use to set this up?
Literally just a Viper Ult and a razor, right? So
the showstopper early with Keyless?
he just quietly walks up through the Viper Ult, so it allows him to close the gap without them. No one's ever seen anything like this. You know, they can't. If they were to fully respect the razor and the amount of space that he has, they would have to stand here to respect the razor. So they can't afford to do that. You know, so it's a bit of like a. There isn't really much of a counter to this, to be honest, other than headshotting him out the air, you know? So
I think as well, they're very likely to expect the raise ult from hookah side of the map as well, because they probably don't expect them to commit two big ults
exactly,
from
yeah,
the same angle.
there's that as well.
So it's like might even funnel more people. I think they're hoping to funnel people into near the Viper.
Yeah.
Because there's no way they run through the Viper ult either, so they might just stand in a group in between both of them. That might be
and I think what the thought process was from Ascend was that they were going to do this Viper Ult, and I think what Zeke was doing is he's waiting for sound cues, obviously, but the sound cue he's waiting for is the Sova drone, right? So people obviously use Sova drone to kind of, you know, clear out Viper Ults, right? So he was going to sit in here with his Raze Ult out and wait for the Sova drone and probably, you know, Raze Ult the Sova while he's droning. So this is a really nice play. So to all my Raze mains out here and IGLs, this is a really cool concept, and look out for it as well when you're playing against a Raze and a Viper.
I really like as well someone playing aggressive in the Viper ult instead of Viper.
Yes.
I think it's one of the best things you can do.
100%.
Like one of the most common mistakes I see.
Yeah.
Even like with like coaching is and players that I see.
Pro
like,
players as well. Yeah.
Just playing too aggressive as Viper in your own ult.
Yeah,
just
it's
get
really
someone else
annoying.
to do it and
Yeah.
be like the insurance. It's
when I'm
way
playing
more efficient.
when I'm playing around Vipers and ults, I always have to micromanage them and say like let me lead, like play at the back, play your life, you know. All right, let's move on to the second example I have from this VOD. So this is going to be an example of how Zeke kind of reacts to pressure on the opposite side of the map he's playing on. So what you're going to see is Liquid are going to kind of try and take A here. So Zeke knows that Liquid are pretty heavy towards A. So you're going to see him, he's going to like kind of, he thinks he wants to rotate, and then he realizes like, you know, there's comms coming in, like they're not really committing. You're still breathing really loud, by the way, Ben. Or maybe it's a fan or something.
Yeah, it's a fan, I think.
Alright. So yeah, he starts kind of rotating, and then he realizes like, wait, they can still go B, like there's a teleporter here, I need to kind of take some aggressive space. So when there's 4 people on the opposite side of the map, it means this space here is weak. So aggressing while the enemy team are pressuring the opposite side of the map is kind of the right reaction. It's a bit funky on bind, but you can kind of apply that rule in general. So let's see what he does.
Out of the round.
So he's gonna walk into hookah soon.
He tried to get the drone. It didn't happen.
So if anyone was to lurk here, they wouldn't expect him here this ready. Now he's actually just gonna take hookah fully and get super aggressive and try and catch a lurk off guard. He doesn't actually expect 4 people to come his way. So this is a one and done, realistically. So if 4 people were to push you properly, you would get traded, right? So he's playing to outplay a lurk. So he knows there was 4 people on A recently, so he thinks there's only one outside hooker. So it's a bit of it's kind of a misplay that goes well for him. But realistically, this position is good against more than one players most of the time, because, well, you'll see why, and I'll explain why when it happens.
I wanted to say something as well.
Go for it.
Quickly, I just want to say, like, if he was to play super passive because he's solo, he would let them like group up, and it would be like
exactly.
Even if it ends up being 4v1, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Like, it's way too risky for him to play. You know, they could walk up long, they could do so many plays. At least if he gets early info here, like the luxury raise, is probably what he does.
These guys can rotate earlier.
is just like getting a kill, and he's got like a molly where he's got nades
Yeah.
basically to zone. But we'll play out the clip and then.
And the timing window, it still favors
So
Liquid if they can take down Zeke.
now, if you think from the perspective of the attackers here, you're never ever ready to double peek this off angle, right? And it takes a while for Scream here to turn around and hit this trade. Oh, I'm gonna have to drag him back in, aren't I?
That's fine. I'll do it.
You do it? Alright. So, it's all good, yeah. You back on the stream?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
But Zeke, he's gonna hold this
So, yeah.
position.
He ends up,
Fantastic. The pain shells shut it
you know,
down.
winning those 2 fights, and then he gets really good value out of his util. Now, something I'd like to point out here is this boombot, right? So it would be quite easy to miss this, but this is a super advanced boombot. He knows that at a pro level, no one's going to stand in the open and shoot a boombot. They're going to hide to shoot the boombot, so he knows he's going to have the space to cross because of the boombot, because they're going to hide while they're shooting it. And he catches them off guard with this reposition. It's super impressive. I love that sequence from him. But at first glance, it just looks like a normal 3K, right? But this is what I love about Zeke. There's so many little thought processes that you would miss if you didn't have the playing experience or, like, you know, the time into raise or the opportunity to ask him what he was thinking.
I just love how he uses util just position, delay, and just
yeah, he gets
it's
max
really-
value. He
really
doesn't want to
nice zoning
die.
people out.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. The way I think about it is you don't want to die with any util left if you can avoid it.
This as well, like if he fell out, like if he made the decision, because some people would consider this a misplay because he got a kill, he got the advantage, and then he risked throwing it away.
Yeah,
But if it was so risky for him to jump out long and just leave the site after that kill that he.
yeah, because
Actually,
someone
I
could
think
already
it's
be
got
up. Someone could already be up long behind him.
Yeah.
They could already be here, so he has to kind of
That's
push
the
forward.
thing with bind in general is like really, that's why bind's such a weird map sometimes and quite a hard map to play.
Yeah,
I have a question about the reposition.
yeah, go for it.
In that instance, are you like making noise when you're repositioning, or did he? Like,
No,
shift
he
it
didn't.
off?
He so you can get away with running without making sound. You can. I think everyone knows this, but you can run for a little bit before you make your first footstep. So I think that's what he did. Yeah, so he runs before making his first footstep and then shift walks, right? So yeah,
Okay.
you know, obviously at this level, every single footstep that you make will get picked up on. In most situations. There will be situations where someone's getting Brim ulted, Sova ulted, and they just can't hear footsteps, right? Like, there will be some crazy stuff, but at this level, you kind of understand that if you make a footstep, you've given up where you are, you know? When I watch lower ranked VODs and stuff, I see people making footsteps and getting away with, like, acting like they don't know they're there, you know? Like, people don't pick up on footsteps at low ranks for some reason. Anyway, I have a third example. I actually have 6 examples to go through, so.
Is this all in one half? Or is it?
This is round after round after round after round.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, this round here, so Soulcast is gonna see, he's gonna see the Sage peek here. An angle like that, yeah, so he sees his little foot, right? And he doesn't want to take the fight, because before the round, Liquid have identified that Ascend can afford to have an AWP, right? So he knows that this guy could have an AWP, and he doesn't want to take that fight. It's, you know, you avoid...
Well.
Yeah, it's also seen it. But yeah, that doesn't really matter. Any AWP, you avoid peeking, you avoid taking dry gun fights against an AWP. So, what he's going to do is he's going to try and find out who's there. So he has a little util set. He's going to throw this knife. But he has to distract them so they don't turn around and shoot it. So he's going to throw this flash and peek, but he actually messes up the flash and dies. Now, the knife does reveal who's there, but what his goal there was to find out who peeked, to find out if it is Sage or not. Because CNED's the AWPer, right? If they see a Sage, they know he has the AWP. That's kind of, you know, you kind of get away with making certain assumptions at this kind of level. But I don't think you could make that assumption below Radiant, really.
Might just be a case they got a jet and chamber or someone like that.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
they-
If
they
you
game
know,
would
if you
be
see a
more
jet and chamber,
weird.
yeah, you know the jet and chamber has an AWP. Alright, so let's watch this sequence here. So I don't really know why Killer's decided to kind of walk through the smoke and die. Yeah, that's interesting. But let's focus on Zeke. So here's this Reyna,
And everything. They're gonna start rotating.
and now he knows, okay, what is Reyna going to do if she wants to take the site? She's going to flash, right? So he picks the perfect position to outplay the Reyna flash. He's close enough to where the Reyna flash isn't going to affect him, and it might even go over his head, right? So watch
The
this.
hit screen must open this position up. But Zeke
You would not play this angle unless you're outplaying a Reyna flash. You know what I mean? The other interesting thing is he knows they don't have a KO. If the KO was alive, he couldn't play here because of a right-click flash. He wouldn't have the space to live if he got right-clicked. So this is just beautiful positioning around the enemy's comp.
on the other
And
side.
look how he
Slow
converts it.
ball down,
It's
and they have
incredible
nothing to
positioning.
check for Zeke. He's gonna get 2 kills for
So yeah, he wasn't that going for that kill on that Viper was kind of sloppy, but I kind of respect it, to be honest. But yeah, the thing I'm most impressed about is the way he adapts mid-round to what util the enemy team have or are going to use, and finds positions that completely outplay the util they have. So before I move on to the next example, does anyone have any questions or anything?
If only he used his nade and backed up.
Yeah,
And
I would have
nade
used
off the
nade,
wall.
yeah.
That would have
100%.
been, and then use satchel.
Would have been
whatever you wanted.
incredible.
That'd have been like really good, but he's just feeling it at this point. Bit of-
Yeah, and I think it's also, you know, semi-finals of champions. Like you aren't playing like, I don't know. I've kind of experienced this where like in matches, I kind of play different to how I would in a calm prac environment, right? Like I don't. I feel like I take more risks in matches. Do you feel the
it's
same?
a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it's kind of
Sometimes, like,
overwhelming.
there's so
Yeah.
much going on.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like whoever takes more risks wins the match sometimes. Feels like really rewarding to have big balls. So I think that's kind of what he was doing.
especially as a duelist player.
Yeah,
He's
especially as a
gotta get
draw
the
player. Exactly.
confidence.
Yeah. All right. Now next round.
Have
Real
they-
confidence.
Yes. And we're gonna get
Incredible
another
Razor play here. So look at the way he walks into this cubby at the start of the round. Now, you wouldn't be able to do this unless your team could afford an AWP. So at a pro level, each team kind of gives the other team a certain amount of respect when the other team can afford an AWP. So he knows that Liquid know that CNED has an AWP, and he's playing around the fact that just the passive pressure of his team being able to afford an AWP creates space for him to take, right? So Liquid aren't going to challenge these angles when Ascend has an AWP available. So Zeke takes that free space, and it's a ballsy assumption, right? Now, the beautiful thing here is he uses the same read about his team being able to afford an AWP to assume that no one is going to dry walk into short. They're going to use a drone or a flash before he gets a fight, right? So, watch this. He makes that assumption, and what he's doing is he's using those sound cues to trigger a Razor play. So watch this.
May not expect to see him here because he was dropping that wall towards the other side of the map. So the question is, where is CNED?
It's just such a beautiful, like, you know, before the round even started, he knew exactly how the round was going to play out and what was going to happen on his area of the map, and it's just so beautiful to watch.
You might have to replay because it's a little bit laggy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah,
Alright.
sometimes. I
Alright,
don't know
let's watch
why.
that again. So Liquid start grouping up here, and he knows they aren't going to dry walk in because his teammate can afford an AWP. They use the flash, he uses the sound cue to trigger his Razor, and he goes away and he filters them back towards B, using the Razor. And obviously, you know, there's a Sage here as well, so you don't want to rush into a Sage and a Raze, and potentially a Viper as well. So they're going to back off.
Just gets funnels them into
Exactly.
a play they didn't want to do,
Mhm.
and they have to react instantly. So he doesn't get a kill, but it was still like a really
Yeah.
good play.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, any questions or anything you want to say, Ben?
No, just if anyone has any questions or thoughts, or just not even just questions, just input in general. Like it's super interesting to hear, you know, all of your opinions on plays, how you think it could have been better. Any questions, anything like that.
No?
Anyone have anything or?
Guy just has a fucking huge brain.
Yeah, he does. He does have a huge friend. That's why I think he was the best. Well, I know he was the best player on this team, 100%. All right, so let's go next example. Let me just drag it in real quick. Alright. So this is actually the same round, right? So Zeke's filtered them to B. Hold on. Something I'd like to point out as well about this round is the way Zeke repositions again based off of what util the enemy team have. So he's going to go Heaven here Does anyone know why he goes heaven?
Seconds to go.
So look at the enemy team's comp and the enemy team's ults. Does anyone know why he goes heaven? Far back from the enemy? Any ideas?
Because they have a KO ult.
It's because the KO ult, bro, yeah. So he goes back to heaven so that he can get value out of his util. The way that he's constantly thinking of ways to outplay the enemy comp is so impressive to me. So let's watch what happens here on B, because there's another really nice play that comes out from Ascend here around this hooker smoke, and you'll see in a sec. Alright, so the KO ult comes in. He gets the smoke off last second, which is really nice. So what he was doing there is he was sat in the iPad waiting to click the smoke. So everyone knows that when the voice line comes out of the KO, you have a little bit of a delay before you actually get suppressed. So when he heard that voice line, he just clicked the smoke down. And look at the smoke. Look at the advantage this gives Starzo. Watch this. So it's actually bulging out and giving him a corner to play in. So they're kind of playing a little bit of Fortnite. They've built like a Fortnite base for him.
I love smokes like this.
Yeah, it's so
I
cool.
always do smokes with like gaps, like on when I'm defense.
Yeah, it's such a cool play. And this is, you might have seen this as well on Twitter. You might remember this. I will always remember this play. But yeah, the way that they kind of use these really like unorthodox factors of util and stuff to win rounds is just fucking beautiful to me. All right.
They're just literally one step ahead.
Literally,
like
bro.
all of the players, they
Yeah.
they just knew they're just reading liquid. And like,
So
when
good.
you watch it, you just see a 3K, but you realize like how many little things they built up.
Yeah.
So the communication in the rounds, like they have a lot of vocal, smart players on their team.
Not even reading liquid, literally manipulating them. What the fuck is going on here? Literally manipulating liquid into doing what they want them to do with the raise ult, right? So they raise ulted short and filtered them back towards B, and then had the perfect play to counter a B tick with the smoke. That wasn't. What the fuck is that? Alright. So next example. Unless anyone has any questions about this one.
Why did Zeke get benched? Like,
He's. What did you say, Ben?
He did it himself because of
Yeah,
mental
mental stuff. Yeah, so like mental health issues, like depression and loss of motivation. So it's hard to retain. Huh?
I don't think they won a game this thing without it.
No,
because
their
massive
new
loss,
roster's horrendous.
It's only 2-player difference from this, isn't it? Or
Yeah, I just think I don't know.
Zone. Oh no, they lost 3. Yeah, they changed
Yeah.
it quite a lot.
It's a shame. But yeah, like it's hard to retain motivation and stuff when you win the biggest event Valorant's ever had. You know, it's hard to want to do it again because everything building up to that has been so draining, and then you're finally there, and it's hard to kind of retain that motivation. You know.
So nothing will beat that feeling, really. Obviously, you could do it again, but anything less than that is quite.
Yeah, it's like one of the worst things that can happen to players. Really, it happens in every sport.
Yeah.
So, next example, unless anyone has any more questions or anything? No?
Anyone have anything that they don't like or that they think could have been done better that they've seen so far?
Alright.
Or-
The only question I had is what if they I remember like at the start on like before this round
This is an exit.
where they did like the Viper roll and then the raise
Yeah.
ult to push him out. What if an enemy went
wonder,
showers?
is he
Isn't
gonna
that really
stop the show?
risky? Since showers was completely open.
I'll
5
load
minutes
it up and I'll
ago,
show you what was
I
happening.
thought,
The
I'd
wonder, is he
leave.
gonna bust
So you'll see what happens here.
out the
So,
showstopper early with
I've watched this
Keyless?
before. The Viper actually comes out of the ult after the raise ult goes off and she goes and looks at toilets. Look.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they were to go toilets, you know, they'd have a Viper ult short, and it means they can, because short is very strong, with a solo player short, it means they can devote a lot of resources to toilets. So what's probably going to happen here is she's going to go here and throw a one-way toilets, I think. I think, yeah, she has a one-way here. So yeah, toilets is also strong. So the Viper ult allows them to kind of take resources away from short towards toilets.
As well,
Okay.
they've got 3 players commit towards B. They've got Sage there and Sky taking info. What's probably going to happen if nothing happens by this point? It would be based on the
Yeah.
info. Is Sage wall and then 1 rotate over,
Yeah.
and then 2 people will commit to holding bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say
So-
like a Viper ult's almost like a person on its own, like an extra player?
If someone's playing in it, yeah, it's kind of like 2 people instead of 1 because it's that big of an advantage, you know? Sometimes
Okay.
against certain comps, you will need someone there breaking dogs and drones for someone who's playing in a Viper ult. in some situations. But yeah, it's pretty safe to leave someone solo in a Viper ult and consider that place very strong.
Okay.
Alright. Should we move on, or any other thoughts or anything? Alright, let's go to the final example of this segment, and then we'll move on to activity 3 after this. One sec.
I got
Okay.
a question.
Go
for
on.
everyone. Is this not making everyone want to pick Raze in the next rank game?
Yeah, for real.
And run it down. Raze just looks. Raze is so fun.
Yeah, for real.
I love playing Raze.
This is gonna
Is
be the
anyone else
funnest
Raze
example.
main? Or
She's never really been a bad agent.
She has been a bad agent, for sure.
When?
For the past year. Until this jet
No.
nerf, she was bad. In a pro level.
Maybe with her ult, with a pro level.
Yeah, at a pro level, she has been bad for a very long time. Until recently.
it's until chamber because the
Yeah.
and the jet nerf because the
Yeah.
problem is the operator is so strong. Like you need it in. That's what makes Raze by herself has not been a bad agent, but in terms like the overall comp, you lose that ult presence, and she's not as good of an entry in a lot of maps
Yeah.
than Jet was. So it meant that in itself makes her weaker, not that her kit is actually weak. It just
Right.
doesn't play
Yeah.
out well with the team on a lot
So-
of maps. Like on Split, she was still really strong, and same as this map.
Until Chamber, there wasn't really space for a rifling duelist role. Because when Chamber comes out, now you have kind of an AWPer that isn't a duelist, and it kind of makes space for a rifling duelist entry. Anyway, let's move on to this. So, this is an anti-eco. So,
Does
Zeke...
everyone know what that means?
Yeah, does
Does
everyone
anyone
know?
not know what that means? Actually,
Me, because I'm a retard.
You don't know what that means? Okay, anti-eco means you are... So, ascender on an anti-eco. Anti-eco means you're playing against shit guns. So these guys are ecoing, so you're countering the eco. You get me?
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. Alright, so Zeke knows they have shit guns, and he's playing on top of this pillar up here. Right? Now, if you think from Liquid's perspective, it's going to be very hard to trade this guy when you only have sheriffs and a judge. And they also don't expect anyone up here, and they kind of like, with this Viper util, they kind of, they clear this corner, and then they're like, okay, we're safe. This spot's kind of a counter to this Viper util set. You'll see in a sec why. But he relies on some really nice movement here to get away with 1 kill against 4 people. So really he should have been traded. If these guys had rifles, he wouldn't have got away with this. So that's why this works. You'll see.
Liquid's looking really one-dimensional. 4 people.
So yeah, he literally like uses his C4 like a jet dash. So he's planned ahead in the round. Like he knows because they're on shit guns, has the mechanics and the advantages to deal with whatever they throw his way.
it's a 145 angle, by the way.
Oh,
So
what?
like a sheriff, like a 145.
Yes,
angle is what I
yeah.
call it. That's why he's up there.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
they're low by, they can't one-shot
can't
him,
one-tap
which is
him.
why he knows he's got enough time
Yeah,
to
exactly.
to throw a satchel.
That's kind of, yeah, I hadn't really conceptualized that in my mind, but yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to explain. So that's a good
If you
term
don't
that I'm
know
going
what I
to
mean
use
by
actually.
145 angle is too far for the sheriff to one-shot.
So yeah, that's kind of what he was thinking here. And then what you're going to see here is, so he takes, he takes note of the agent he kills, right? And he plays in a spot where they need their KO flash to deal with it. So you'll see how he gets rewarded for that. So right here he's thinking, okay, what should I do next? Looks at their comp, like, okay, KO's dead. Let me go in a spot where they need a KO flash to deal with me properly. Obviously, he was also trying to counter the lurk across to lamps, which Scream actually gets away with. And I don't think Zeke knew. Yeah, he doesn't seem to know, but he's aware that it could be possible, which is why this Viper's looking lamps right now. A little bit. But yeah. So he's playing in a spot where, imagine the T's had their KO, and they were to right-click KO flash through this wall. If Zeke was standing here, he would get farmed. But because he killed the KO, he's adapting like mid-round. It's fucking beautiful. I love it.
It is crazy how many of these decisions.
I know.
Like it sometimes seems like too good to be like the case,
Yeah.
but it actually is because of those reasons. Like that's the type of level.
Zeke
But,
really is like one of the best players in the world, in my opinion. I've never seen this level of game sense from a player in any game.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just crazy.
Yeah.
He must do a lot of self-review on his games. Like loads
Yeah,
of
100%. He's one of those players where he's like a free thinker, you know what I mean? Like, he hasn't learned these concepts from someone. He's sat down and looked at the game and thought about the best way to play it and came up with these ideas himself. It's fucking amazing.
And then tested it.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
All right, so let's see how he gets rewarded for this. So obviously he's got someone breaking the recon for him. They throw a bad recon. Now they don't have this KO flash and they have no time. So now that's a beautiful reposition. It doesn't look like much, but yeah, that is just. I mean, that's nice mechanics and everything. But he's played well on the time and around their util, and it's an incredible round overall. I love. He does, yeah. Like he just outplays their util so well. Alright, so that is my last example for the kind of fight picking and positioning thing from this VOD. So if anyone has any questions, go for it. If not, we will move on to late rounds and post plants.
What did everyone think to that? Just out of interest, what everyone think was everyone's sort of conclusion on that?
As I said, he is a huge brainer and he's an alien, pretty much.
Yeah, did you guys learn a lot from him? He's an alien, yeah. Yeah. I hope
like,
Go on.
I was just wondering, like, sorry. I was just wondering, like, how do you practice this besides, like, so far?
Ben,
like,
your mic, bro, you're breathing.
Is it really that bad? I don't, it must be. Sorry, I don't know. My mic's on me quiet, so I don't know why. I'm just so focused. I apologize.
The way that you would learn this is obviously by watching these VODs and picking up on it, and it will change your intuition in game. And, you know, knowing that this is a thing you can play around, you'll start to pick up on it more in your ranked games now. But realistically, this comes from obviously understanding the concept, and then it comes from like playing experience on top of that. You know what I mean?
So
it's like looking at these like pro VODs, like it doesn't exactly scream like, oh my gosh, that reposition was amazing. Like how do you know? Or no one screams like, oh, he knew they didn't have to flash.
Yeah.
You know what? Like if I'm looking at pro VOD, like or things I should look out for to like get value out of it.
So
well, go on, Ben.
I was just gonna say, what you want to do is you want to look at each character individually and like think about like what it is that makes them strong on this map. And then if you're trying to apply it to your own game, it's like, okay, well you realize, okay, the KO flash is really good for close range. The Reyna flash is good, but not for like super close range. And like these little things. And then once you get a kill, every time you get a kill or something happens, press scoreboard or look at the top of your screen and be like, okay, what did they just lose? How can I abuse what they just lost? And then the more you do it, the more natural it will become. But that's one of the hardest, probably the most advanced thing. It's why Valorant is such a complicated game. So the more you can just try and practice that, that's literally what separates the very best, from the really good.
Yeah.
Right. I really like what you said. How can I abuse what they just lost? That seems like pretty easy to remember. Like
100%. Yeah. There's a few playstyle things that I teach in my one-on-one sessions, but that's kind of like very advanced stuff that I kind of don't teach until I get to my Ascendant and Immortal students, because it isn't worth focusing on at a low level. But if you want to learn stuff like this, what Zeke and NBS told me and my friend Leica is when you're watching pro VODs and other players playing, focus on them on the minimap, focus on what they're doing, try and understand what they're thinking. Literally, what are they saying in their head? What is their inner voice saying? And when you don't understand it, rewind it and rewatch it until you do understand it. Get me? And that's going to be very thought-provoking, and you're going to learn a lot, even if you're incorrect about what they're thinking. You know what I mean? In my opinion, that's the best way to learn from pro VODs if you're just looking to improve your individual skill. All right.
Just literally, anytime anything happens, just pause and think, why did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
How did that event unfold? What info? Imagine it from the play. Like, what info did? Like, this is what you're saying basically, but just what info did that player have?
Yeah.
And what did that make him do what he did? Like, was there a reason that he could have done that? And even like literally, as you said, anything you come up with will be relevant.
Yeah, even if it's incorrect, you're still learning.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't watch any like, you need to watch the higher level games.
Yeah,
you can't do this in like lower tier games, because only the top of the top will be thinking like this.
Alright, so should we move on to late rounds and post plants, guys?
Wait, I had a quick question. In terms of finding the right VODs, do you recommend because like for example, if we watch Liquid versus Send, like it's always switching POVs.
Mhm.
How do you find like let's just say I really wanted to learn Zeke. How
Mhm.
do I find proper consistent gameplay? of Zeke?
You. This is one of the
Bane of my
weaknesses
life.
of Riot. Yeah, this is a question we constantly ask ourselves. The best way to do it right now is to look at the minimap, unfortunately.
Look at games where he did really good and then
Yeah.
watch him more often.
Yeah.
That's basically they need to release a POV thing. It's the worst thing about
It's not
Valorant.
happening, yeah, but
But you can tell a lot from the minimap and like the
Mhm.
little util that they have, and like just like you can say that you watch something unfold, it's not from Zeke's POV. You can kind of work out, like you can see the timings that he uses util by
yeah,
like,
by looking at this thing.
a hard changing.
Yeah. So you would look at the minimap and you would see like, oh, this nade just disappeared, he just used his nade. Why did he use his nade? Where did he use his nade, right? Sometimes you can see things through the wall. An option which is really underrated is just watching him play ranked, Sometimes you're going to get rounds where he's playing for content or whatever, right? But most of the time, people do the stuff that they do in their teams, realistically. The pro players. A lot. I'd say that's pretty false for NA players. If you're going to watch an NA player play ranked, that's probably a waste of time. But for EU players, Nats and Zeke are good to watch play ranked. And if you go in my Discord server, in the hashtag resources channel, there's 2 YouTube channels where you can find a bunch of pro VODs. I'll link
the resource channel in here, right? We have a
yeah. I'll do that
whack.
after the session. I'll whack my entire resources channel in this resources channel. And you guys can find a bunch of stuff there. Alright, so any other questions or anything before we move on?